Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this evening's school committee meeting. We're going to call today's meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, December 6th, 2022. This meeting is being video and audio recorded for future cable broadcast. Please silence your cell phones for the duration of the meeting. If I could have a motion, please, to open our meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Take a roll call.
Sure. Mrs. Gomes?
Yes.
Mr. Tubbs is absent. Mr. Hood?
Yes.
Mr. Howcroft?
Yes.
Mrs. Downing?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, and if we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We have the approval of minutes, payroll, and warrants to start our agenda this evening. So if I could request a motion of approval, please, for the minutes of October 18th, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, so seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And approval of payroll and warrants, if I could request a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And do we have anyone signed up for delegation today?
We do not.
Okay, thank you. No old business on the agenda. We're going to move right into new business, and I'll hand it over to you for the superintendent's report, Dr. Bailey.
Okay, thank you. In your package, you have your personnel report, and since last month, the district has hired 2 new staff members. Does anybody have any questions regarding the personnel report? Okay. We also have a retirement recognition, although he was unable to join us. Barry Parker, I just want to publicly thank him for his service to our schools. And he will be getting a gift from the district. But unfortunately, at the last minute, he was canceled. So, Mr. Missler, I'd love to call him to the podium and give us a monthly technology update.
Thank you. Over to you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. For a quick update, essentially what we're doing, let me run through the notes. We've submitted our E-rate 470. And for those that don't know, E-rate is where school districts get reimbursement based on a grant system, if you will. So we've submitted that forward, and that's included all of our infrastructure, our certain licenses for our firewalls, access points, etc. It's a little bit more robust than we've done in the past, and it doesn't mean you're going to get everything, but at least we've put it out there to see what we can retain. We've also, working with business department and food service, we submitted our free and reduced numbers. That's how we get our E-rate numbers. So essentially is the higher free and reduced numbers you have for kiddos means the higher return you get for your E-rate number. So if you did a project that was $100,000, for instance, and you had an E-rate return of 40%, sometimes that's a $40,000 discount that you would get on your $100,000 project, if that makes sense. So that is out, and right now what we're doing is we're receiving bids. As the 470 goes out, it goes out to all vendors that are on our state bid list. State bidded vendors then submit quotes to us. We get to go through those quotes and then select which one's best for us. So that's done. We're in the process of doing our EPIMS. Actually, I talked to Kathleen today, and she just said everything's looking good at the moment, so we're going to be submitting that shortly. And to kind of go over that, and I mentioned this in the last meeting, I know there were some questions about it when I stated about some past practices. Essentially, without getting too much into the weeds, it seems that past practice has been where we've submitted data based on a task without reviewing that data to make sure its validity. So what we're going to do moving forward is putting procedures in place to make sure that we have valid data. Data is a key in this district. Everything's driven off it. As I mentioned with our E-rate, for instance, if we don't have our right free and reduced numbers, the discount actually leaves some money on the table. So our approach is to not do that anymore. So that's kind of what we're doing moving forward. And again, putting in best practices for students, staff, submittal, anything regarding data moving forward. Budget time. We've been working heavy, all the admin have been working heavy with Pat McIntyre and superintendent, and this is to kind of go over our needs, wants, etc. I made this a number in here, or a line item, because the budget for tech has been a bit all over the map. There hasn't been things in great placeholders, and Patrick McIntyre is working hard on fixing, for instance, if we have a line item that says educational or district-wide educational, instructional education, something like that. We had actually internet, so our ISP information was under that line item. Or if there was travel, we had some printer stuff under the travel line item. So working with Patrick, we've been able to clean that up, make that much more efficient. And the goal is to make sure that whatever we purchase in this district goes to the proper line item. I've met with all our administrators to look for their wants, needs, have-to-haves, and work to incorporate that into that budget for 2024. Along with that, I've also thrown in the things that we've talked about and that were highlighted from our audit, which is our infrastructure needs. So that number could be a little bit scary when you see it. Just keep in mind that we have our E-rate out there as well. Some of those things will help discount. And then as we move forward, we can find better solutions if we need to for funding, whether it's to go through capital committee, whether it's, or capital planning, whether it's more grants, et cetera, et cetera. But we're putting that all on the table so everyone can see it, and we'll kind of go from there. With that, I also mentioned our 10-year plan. I remember someone made a comment last month. So the 10-year plan you guys will have at the end of this year. Part of that process is that inventory system that we have in place, and it's to inventory everything in this district. And what we found is there's some inequalities. Some of those inequalities are some of your teachers are utilizing some really old tech. Some of them have nice new tech, but there isn't actually a plan in place, and I haven't found it, that shows how to go from old to new. So that 10-year plan will give us a floor plan, if you will, and a map, a timeline, or a reference to go from X to Z and actually have a structure set. And part of that's also going to be to come back to this committee and talk about what some other districts do, which is putting in place a 5-year turnover, a 5-year replacement for equipment, so that way you don't have 10-year-old computers in here that people are getting frustrated with, leaving them on shelves, etc. So that 10-year plan you guys will have at the end of this year, and it'll reference everything from your infrastructure needs, computer needs in classrooms, to make sure that we have equality in every classroom moving forward. We've rolled out a new ticket system. This is School Dude. The reason why we have this is data and accountability. So what I've heard here is you'll have teachers that'll have a problem, and then they don't say anything, or some people get afraid to say something, or they've said something so many times before, for instance, I've come here, that now they're not willing to actually talk about it. So what we're hoping to do is get this system in place, get the teachers to put in this information, let us know that they have a problem. I can put eyes on, and then I can run some reports to say, okay, we definitely have a wireless issue at this wing because I have 15 tickets every month or whatever, and it gives the data to actually take care of our teachers' needs. Unfortunately, if you don't take care of their needs, people just kind of find their own way. And I just don't feel that that's a great thing. We can do better customer service. So that's what this is kind of targeting. Outside of that, I apologize if I'm all over the place. I'm sleep deprived from having a little one. But I want to just say it's great seeing all of you, and the whole technology department wants to wish you guys all happy holiday season, and it's great to see you. Anybody have any questions for me?
So, School Dude, I know we've had that in the past, so are we just using that to its fullest capabilities now? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, to go into that, so A, it was really set up the way it should have. We fixed that. B, it looks like when it was put in place, kind of like what's happened in this past, things haven't been put in place with a process or a procedure. It's kind of just been rolled out. For instance, when I jumped in that School Dude, I realized that there were tickets from a year ago that are still in there, and there's probably 60 of them just sitting around. You have no idea some of those people left this district. So we're starting clean slate, and the expectation is all of our technicians are in there, every ticket gets closed, all your assistant principals and principals get to see every ticket that gets changed, whether it's open, closed, or pending. So that, for instance, if you're a teacher in a classroom and you request something and I don't have it, but we're waiting for it, I could put in, just waiting for it to come in. They'll see that, principals will see it, and we have accountability all the way through. I think there were some issues with giving people access that need to have access. There's a little bit too much, I don't know how to say it, essentially, but it's to kind of keep tickets to the tech director and not give them to the technicians. The way we have this rolled out now is all of us have the same access. There's expectation that we all get to go into those ticket systems and handle them. I'll give you an example. One problem we have is when we get an email, say we get an email from a teacher, that teacher could have emailed all three of us, and what we're finding is all three of us start working on the same problem. So with this one ticket system, it allows us to say, okay, if I'm Ken, Kathleen, or Chris, or myself, I can simply say, hey, Patrick, here's your ticket, or hey, Kathleen, here's your ticket. We don't have to actually work on the same problem. We get to divide and conquer, which makes it more efficient, and just a better system all around. And no more we're going to have 3 months, 4 months, et cetera. You're going to find most school districts will close out tickets. It's usually 24 to 48 hours. My target in the district I came from, I got it down to 5 hours. That's my goal. My goal is to get it down to about 5 hours in this district when a ticket comes in that we can bang out even sooner if possible.
And this school dude, is that used for IT and for maintenance, or just IT?
IT and maintenance. Yep.
No, I'm good, actually answered the question I was going to ask, so.
Awesome. All right, thanks, guys.
Well, I just want to say I really appreciate your reports. It's great to kind of have a picture of what you're working on and where we're progressing to. And so I just want to say more a comment that I appreciate the reports that we're getting. Did you have a question, Mr. Alper? Thank you.
Congratulations, Doug.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
He's a cutie, the baby. Next up, we have our new reading specialist this year at Ford Middle School. I'd like to call up to the podium Kelly Morse. And we try to highlight curriculum at our meetings, so I thought it was important for you to hear from our new position, the reading specialist. Oh, last year, right, this is our second year, I apologize. See how quickly it goes?
Time flies.
A blur.
Absolutely. Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the school committee. I'm very excited to be here to give you a little snippet of what my job is at Ford Middle School. My office is right there, and I apologize for my Snoopy clock that goes off on the hour. And I removed the batteries this evening, so I will try to remember to do that for you in the future. Not to do with my job, but I would like to say I do appreciate Patrick's role. I have to say technology can be such a barrier for educators, and he shows up, or Kathleen or Ken, they show up within a few hours and do their best to fix whatever the issue is. So thank you. So here at Ford Middle School, during the day, I have many different roles. I try to highlight the ones that seem to consume most of the day. I'm either teaching, collecting data, analyzing data, or consulting with teachers, students, or administrators. And that's pretty much the big picture. I went to Bridgewater State University for my undergraduate and then Leslie College for my master's. I was a second grade teacher for 20 years, which really comes in handy when I'm focusing on those foundational reading skills with our struggling readers. And currently, I'm very excited to be pursuing a Wilson certification, which, again, thank you to the support of administration, because that is an excellent program to help those struggling readers, and it is quite an undertaking, similar to a college course. So it will get done, but it will be hard work. So MTSS, I'm not sure if you are familiar or well versed in it, but basically MTSS is a framework that schools use, and you can find it right on the Department of Ed website. And it's really a system to make sure that the schools are using data to make their decisions. They're progress monitoring the students to make sure they're making the gains so that instruction can be adjusted along the way. And we're using evidence-based supports and teaching methods to really support the students, and it's really for all students, though most of my work is targeted on or with struggling readers. It really is meant universal design, all for everyone to succeed. My biggest part, I believe, in the MTSS are the tiered supports. And basically what that means is Tier 1 is your regular classroom instruction that all of the students receive. Tier 2 is when you need a little bit more focus on some skills, and it usually involves a small group. And this is in addition to the regular curriculum. And it's really just to kind of boost the students. It's not necessarily your most needy students, but just those who might need, maybe they didn't read all summer or something like that. A lot of the students do receive Tier 3 in the fall, and by December, they're good to go, and they don't require my service anymore. I do see a significant amount of students. I do provide Tier 3 instruction, and they come to my office, which they love. Can be a little tricky in middle school because, you know, nobody wants to be seen as, you know, they're very into their image and what others think, but most of the students love coming. It's very cozy and comfy in there, and they think it's pretty fun. So this is a place where I can give those focused interventions that really wouldn't be appropriate in the classroom, and they actually could wind up feeling embarrassed about because it's not the type, it's not the level of instruction that the other students might be receiving. So it is not necessarily special education. It does not mean you have a learning disability if you're receiving Tier 3 reading services. It just means that you really need that targeted, focused intervention. Our district plan, my work very much aligns with our district plan in that the reading services are provided to students who are identified through our data, and we're working to fill in the gaps to increase their literacy skills. So, what's that? The process begins in September, ideally. Sometimes we can get a little delayed with, I don't know, this year it seemed like we had a tricky time, but it wasn't on us, it was Dibbles. So they, a benchmark oral reading fluency means a student reads for a minute, and you time how many words a minute they read, and you note their errors. And that is one of the biggest pieces of data I use, because at this level in middle school, if you aren't a fluent reader, your comprehension is absolutely going to suffer. So this is the biggest piece of data I like to look at, though I do consider what teachers tell me and how students are doing in class, or if administrators have knowledge, especially last year it was my first year, so I didn't have a lot of background knowledge on the students. So I did rely heavily on teachers and administrators to fill in my background knowledge. That's how I find my kids. So after I identify the students, I really try to dig into their individual profile to see where I need to target my instruction. I coordinate schedules and consult with the teachers, and I try to make sure that we cover any gaps that they may have. I set goals with the students, and they are, they're very, at this level, they're very in touch with what they are not doing. That's grade level, we'll say. And sometimes I really have to point out their strengths to them, because all they know is they're struggling and they don't want to struggle anymore. But for the most part, they are very motivated and want to achieve their goals. There is a program called Read Naturally Live, which Angie has made happen, and Michelle and everyone, I suppose, where students, you access it digitally, and it's repeated readings to build fluency. It includes vocabulary instruction and comprehension as well, but it's mostly just the practice, because that's what they need mostly. There is another component called Word Warm-Ups Live, and that really goes back and goes through the phonics skills from the very beginning to the very end. And within that, I can find their placement in that set of skills. And then along the way, I monitor constantly how their progress is, assess constantly, and then adjust my instruction along the way. Here's just an example. I made up some nice names here for you. Just to see, so, okay, great, we have this reading specialist now. Is it effective? And yes, we had an extremely effective year last year. And the 6th grade, I really focused on the 5th graders. And it seems really catching them in 5th and 6th grade is key to their success in 7th and 8th. So last year, I identified 20 5th grade students, and I was able to provide intervention for 18 of the 20. I'm not always able to see all of the students, depending on if they're receiving special education services or whatever their personal circumstances might be with their day. So 18 of the 20 students I met with daily, and throughout the year, they gained an average of 48.9 words per minute, which is huge. If you look at the BOY, that stands for beginning of the year, coming in at 5th grade, you should read 103 words per minute. In the middle of the year, the MOY, 122, and the end of the year, 137 words. So you can see from the beginning to the end, it's about 34 words. So they gained more above and beyond what they needed to gain. There was one student, the one I named Chris, who gained 84 words per minute just in that one school year, which is amazing. So currently what it's looking like this year, I identified 48 5th graders who would benefit from reading intervention, and currently I'm only able to provide intervention for 20 out of 48 of these students. However, I will say that kids can cycle in and out. They don't necessarily need me all year long, and then that gives me the opportunity to bring others in. And I had Mrs. Plod working with me, Susan Plod, in the beginning of the year, which was extremely helpful.
Is that because, sorry to interrupt, is that because of your capacity, or is it because those other students are, like, as you said, in special education programming perhaps? Or?
Right. This year, the number is, there is no way I can service 48 students.
Okay.
So it seems to be about 20 I can fit in the school day. And that's mostly because they need that small group, and some of them need one-on-one, some of them need to be in a group of 2 to 3, no more than 6 in a group for it to be really effective. So unfortunately, my work is limited that way. However, when I had Mrs. Plod, I think I was able to reach at least maybe 8 to 10 more students, and she had a couple more 5th graders. So yes, it's definitely limiting not having an interventionist working with me, for sure.
And just to clarify, Mrs. Plod was retiring in October. We had already hired a teacher for her, so we thought this would be a great use of her time, which it was.
It was.
Then she retired.
Right.
Yes.
Well,
sorry.
Sorry, you're bringing up something for us, and we're moving into budgeting season.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
I don't know, your finance committee. Do you wanna
So I'm wondering, since Mrs. Plod is not here, do we need to replace her right now, or somebody to?
This is a huge gap that we should be thinking
Yeah,
about.
and I guess it would be helpful to know in this instance, maybe, okay, so 28 are not being serviced, how many of those are getting serviced in
Somewhere
other
else.
ways, and what is the true
Right,
gap?
right.
Right, so I think as Mrs. Cole said, some of those kids out of the 20 aren't seeing the full year. And as those slots open up, it gives her the opportunity to bring those other kids in. I will say Ford Middle School has not had interventionists in the past.
Right.
And I know it's something that they've requested in the past. And we are in the midst of budget season and going through those requests. And it wouldn't surprise me if the committee heard about a need with interventionists at the middle school level.
But for right this minute, since Mrs. Plod is gone, do we need to do something right now, budget-wise, to get somebody in, taking Mrs. Claus' place?
If it's okay with the chair, I would ask one of the principals from the middle school to answer that
Absolutely,
question.
yeah.
So,
Very curious.
excuse me. Hi, everyone. So Mrs. Plod was a social studies teacher. So this was for the first 3 months of her school year. It was almost like an extra position that we had. So this isn't a formal position that we have had in the past either. So it's not necessarily something that's budgeted for. But it is something that we're thinking of, and that's included in our budget proposals. So you will be seeing that because we do feel like we need it.
48 kids now. What's happening?
The 48 kids, there are some students that are identified there that are identified in special ed. So they're receiving those services from their special educator at their grade level. So they're not being left behind. And additionally, they're not being left behind, no. And then the other part that we're doing in our classroom is we have our center rotations. So when those, during those times, there's small groups that the teacher themselves are working with. So while it might not necessarily be with Mrs. Morse, it is with the classroom teacher or with the special educator. So we're not leaving anybody behind.
So you don't need me to come in every day to help?
No.
But if you want to.
You're more than welcome. You're more than
No, I'm sorry.
That's my work schedule.
So he wasn't reading my mind, but at the last admin meeting, and we have one again on Thursday, I did bring up the need for an 8 to 9 o'clock slot, where I would like to have a tutor per se, extra duty pay, come and help us from that 8 o'clock
right.
to 9 o'clock slot. The 8 to 8:30 is the 5th and 6th grade win, and then 8:30 to 9 o'clock would be the first half hour in either the 5th or the 6th grade classes to pick up the students that Mrs. Plod was servicing with Kelly. So it is something that is on our agenda. I've spoken to, Angie McGarry about it a couple of times. We'll bring it back up at the school leadership meeting this Thursday. But we do know that it's a need, and we just didn't make up these kids for Mrs. Plod to work with or for Kelly. They are here, and we can see that the slippery slope, and we want to try to minimize it.
Sorry to panic you.
I just want to make sure we're on it.
The numbers are very positive. I mean, we're seeing an impact on
Yes.
what an intervention is bringing to the school system, and we want to make sure that if increased capacity is needed, that we think about how we can make that, happen.
Absolutely. And the students that I don't currently see, they are being monitored in the sense that every 2 to 3 weeks, I'm listening to them read, I'm checking in with them, I'm checking in with their teachers. So they aren't being left behind in the sense that I'm still looking for gains, even, just from the instruction they're receiving from their classroom teacher. And so they're on the radar. They just aren't making it necessarily through my doorway during the day, but we are aware of them and we are tracking them. Does that answer that question? Yes. Okay. So far this year, the average seems to be about 17 words per minute they're gaining now. So I'm hoping we'll have the same success. You can see that, if you look at some of the data, Bob, for example, 38 words per minute, which is huge, being that it's just December. So it's excellent.
That's great.
I'm not sure how I'm doing time-wise, but there is a little video link here where if you want to see a little bit more about the program called Read Live, and there are 2 letters that you can read. I'm not sure, there might be the parent letters that I linked, just to give you an overview of what the programs are. Here's just a student's view of how I track progress with them. And this was a student I actually met with today, and she's receiving pretty intense intervention. I see her every day. And she will be receiving the Wilson lessons from me once I really get going with the course. However, this is just a combination of methods and strategies that I'm using with her, and she's already gained 62 words per minute, and she was blown away, and she was absolutely aware of her progress. I said to her, can you believe this? This is amazing. And she said, I know, I read a book to my mom last night, and she was so impressed. And I said, yes, but she is working so hard. So the progress is happening. This is also a closer look if you'd like to see at a later time about the two programs that I use primarily with the students. Are there any questions?
No, I'm just happy that, you're here and that you're able to make the differences that we've wanted to have been made for years now. So we're happy for that. And we know that the principals will take care of the missing spot there for the other kids, hopefully very soon. If not, just call me.
You can always email it. I'll train you if you want to come.
I was quarried, so I'm okay. So yeah, I'm just very happy that this has been recognized and we're making progress. And because of the COVID years, I'm assuming that's why it went from 20 to 48. So whatever we can do to help our students is what needs to get done. So thank you so much.
I thank you all for your support, and it's a wonderful district, and I'm very happy to be here. So thank you.
We're very happy to have you, Mrs. Morse. Thank you so much for your time tonight.
So great to see.
And I also want to just piggyback that by saying thank you to the committee, because again, without your support of these curriculum programs, we would not have Mrs. Morse and many of the other curriculum programs we have to see that student success. So thank you so much. I do have two other items to finish up my report. Last month, I believe it was Mr. Howcroft had asked for the DART district comparison, so I just wanted to make note that we did put that into your packet. We put Acushnet's numbers with MCAS compared to the DART districts, and then we also put the other districts in the region. And we also put in the per pupil expenditure amounts for 20 and 21. So that is for your reference. And then the second thing I had, I received an email from an attorney where there's 1,300 school districts nationally going into litigation for vaping and deceptive marketing. So I did vet this out through our attorney, and he said, as long as the school committee agrees to it, he thinks we should just move forward and be a part of that. So I just want to make sure with the school committee that you didn't have any issues, and I was going to join in this class action regarding vaping and deceptive marketing.
I did not see that in our packet.
We just got it.
Oh, you just got it?
Yeah, that's why
Okay.
it wasn't on the
Sorry.
agenda, because I just got it.
Okay, sorry.
So before I did anything with it, I didn't want to wait a month to the next meeting, because it's really, not that big of a deal, but I didn't want to go forward with it without the school committee realizing what we were doing. And it's joining the 1,300 other school districts nationally on this class action lawsuit regarding vaping.
Okay.
And the attorney
Do you
said,
need a vote for that, or no?
I would like a vote, if we, just a vote to support, to move forward, if you don't mind.
Okay.
And
Go ahead. I was just going to say, I don't know if I feel like I'm in a position to vote on it either way at the moment, but.
so I was just going to add there's going to be posters and advertising and marketing, right? Part of this whole program thing, are we promoting that as well?
So 33 attorney generals settled with Juul Labs for $434 million over their deceptive marketing. This settlement did not resolve the nationwide litigation by the school districts. And however, this is a step in the right direction for our cases based on the findings and the valuation of the harm to the youth in the community. And it goes on, but my goal in mentioning this tonight is that our attorney, our legal counsel said we should join this.
So the vote would be to include our district
Yep.
in, can you, just so I can get the motion?
Yes.
Vote to participate.
Yeah.
um,
In Massachusetts school districts versus Juul Labs, Inc. Yep.
And the reward would be to, well,
If there was a
monetarily.
settlement, right, if there was a settlement and it was divvied up amongst the school districts participating, this is what our legal counsel said, sometimes districts can get $10,000, $20,000, you just don't know where it's gonna
To use
land.
towards the mental health and
Yeah, I mean,
non-use of drugs.
that is something that the school, right, because we would.
Because we don't have much of that here.
Right,
Okay.
right.
It's a huge problem now. I mean, it's
Right,
I
it's
know
not gonna
I
really
know
cost
it's a
the
huge
district
problem in
anything
area
to
schools.
participate in this, it's just something we're joining in. And I wanted to bring it to the committee's attention.
Maybe just give us a second, we can just
Sure.
look it up.
Of
Just take a
course.
quick glance.
Yep. And I wouldn't do something like that without vetting it through our attorney anyway, so I finally was able to speak to him today about it.
John, would you like to see it?
Do you want to take a
Do you
look
want to
just
take a peek
before we
at it?
take the vote?
In my opinion, I think that if it's going to be monetarily helping us promote health and wellness.
I agree, yeah.
Now that I see the legal counsel's recommendation.
Yeah.
just-
Yeah, you
Otherwise,
never
I felt
know
like
these-
I would've got those.
Right.
And he did say he's been advising all of his school districts to go in this
Yeah.
direction,
Got it.
so.
Oh, yes.
Yep, okay. So if I could request a vote, please, to have the Acushnet Public School Districts participate in the Massachusetts School District litigation versus Jewel Labs, Inc.
So moved?
Second that.
Any discussion or further questions? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank
Got
you.
your approval for that.
Thank you. And that is all I have tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Bailey.
Thank you.
Okay, and Patrick McIntyre for the business manager's report.
Good evening, Chairperson Downing and School Committee. Thank you, as always, for your time. I know you like when I keep it brief, so that is the game plan, and I will try to reiterate that every time I stand up here at the podium. So, that being said, Agenda Item 1, FY23 budget. Again, no surprises to me as of today's date, or through November. Does anyone have any questions on the reports that were facilitated in particular? That being said, at next school committee meeting, I anticipate having a vote on transfers between budget lines, just to level out some of the budgetary line items halfway through the year, and then, anticipate another one of those if needed at the end of the school year. So we'll talk more about that at next meeting. FY24 budget process. So we are well underway, though, early in the stages. It's been a lot of work. First and foremost, I want to thank the administrative team for, putting up with me and my process. I don't think anyone was particularly excited about it to begin with, but I think as we're meeting individually, with the department heads, they're seeing the value in, essentially building their budget and their wish list and their items, and it's letting us have difficult conversations and asks and why we need certain things and what we look like the future budget in their department to look like. And we're building trust and cohesion, and what it's going to do is simplify the spending process in FY24. People are going to have sheets that give them items that if they didn't know what was in their budget line, they can quickly look at the detail and be reassured of what they asked for and what the plan was. They won't have to second guess themselves, and it's even more forward-thinking than just FY24. These asks and these items are built on the future as a whole and where we see the district going, not just for next year. It's for next year, but it's for next year in the future and building upon year after year. So I do want to thank everybody. I know there was a lot of hours after school and on the weekends spent, but it's all going to be worthwhile, and I think we're all seeing that picture come together. So that being said, we've met with all but 2 departments. Dr. Bailey and I have met with the individual administrators to hear their requests, their wants, their needs, the value of each item that they have in their budget sheet, and why it's important to our students, our district plan. And from there, Dr. Bailey and I will take those numbers as a whole, combine them with our salary items, and see where the bottom line stands, and then we'll get more information to you. We just met with Budget Subcommittee prior to this meeting to sort of catch up in the process and understand the vision and the goal for the FY24 budget. You know, and the key is just being transparent with everybody, subcommittee, you know, our department heads, superintendent, school committee, the town. So we're all working together in this process. Any questions on the FY24 budget process? Just a reminder, as far as the timeline goes, if all goes according to plan, which, you know, we are up against it, at the next school committee meeting, we would be presenting the superintendent's recommended budget. So, you know, a month away and a lot of work, but that's the game plan.
Yes, so the timeline has been moved up almost 2 months. And it's for us to vet out everything before we meet, to set expectations with the town of what's going on. I also asked Patrick if we could get what the Chapter 70 was originally last year and what we actually got, which was, you know, in August or September, and that's why we had town meeting.
Right.
Because there was such a difference in what was expected to what we received. There just happened to be more money. So I'd like to see the, you know, 3-year plan of what was thought and what we received each year. So going into this budget, we can see, all right, well, this is what they're saying we're supposed to get, and this is potentially what we could get. Do you follow what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and John agreed as well, we could just, you know, set a game plan on, you know, because we're always told that the town never has money, blah, blah, blah. So we're gonna really see the numbers and be able to see like a 3-year plan of what expectations really should be for us.
So that is typical of, you know, the budget building process.
Of course
You know,
it
the
is.
Chapter 70 amounts are preliminary until, you know, almost summertime. So
Yeah, right,
we're always playing with, you know, anticipated numbers and not actual numbers. But it's a valid point, and it's worth, you know, noting, you know, where that delta of funds ends up and, you know, how we benefit from it or how the town benefits from it. But big picture, just going back to the budget timeline, I know we're kind of shocked to hear that next meeting could be the superintendent's recommended budget. Well, the idea is, you know, we have a school committee meeting each month, right? So January would be the superintendent's recommended budget. February would be the public hearing for that said budget. March would be adopting the budget. April would be a presentation to the finance committee of the budget. And then May would be, you know, town meeting and budget being voted in. So it's really planned based on the major school committee meetings and, you know, the timeline that presents, so.
Back to your point, Sarah. Would there be an opportunity when we have these conversations around the 3-year plan? So like, we're always in a year-to-year planning mode, right? Because that's what we're dealing with. But like, how we get in front of some of the longer-term strategic things that we want to maybe think about or do as a district, like how do we
So
start
Patrick's
to have
work.
this conversation?
Yep, so Patrick's working on that 5-year plan, and then I believe it was a 10-year plan as well, Patch. You're working on like a 10-year, was it a 10-year plan or a 5-year plan?
Well, technology is working on it.
No, you, what do you?
No, not
We're
particularly.
from Patrick. Getting them mixed up, no. So we were talking about curriculum and how there's going to be like a renewal, and we're looking, so we do have some sort of.
Yeah, so, you know, it's ongoing. There isn't necessarily, I guess, in my opinion, we're always looking into the future, whether that's 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, 5. The goal is, you know, living by the district's strategic plan. And as long as our budget can abide by our strategic plan, I think we're headed in the right direction. That being said, you know, if we're locking into multi-year contracts, obviously that's put on the table, and we're making sure that we build around those multi-year contracts or get away from them if it's not falling into place as we anticipated. But to build, you know, out 5-10 years, we can certainly build a wish list.
All right, maybe 5 years.
Yeah.
We were talking about the ESSER grants going away.
Right.
We need to build that into our budget, because not this year, but next year, right, there's going to be one that's going to be gone. in the fall.
Yep.
So maybe 3 years.
So right now, our strategic plan goes to 2026, and it's a working plan, it's a working document, so it's messy, right? What's working, what's not working, it gets changed. But as Patrick said, if something doesn't align to the plan, we're not going to do it. So when the department heads and the budget managers are bringing forth their proposals, we're double checking to make sure, well, how is that related to the district strategy? So that's sort of the vision, and that's the plan that we're following. Of course, the amount of work that we do year to year is tremendous on the budget itself, right? So we've been at this now for a couple of months, but I guess that strategic plan is what drives the goals, and right now it's to 2026.
So to your question, we are not just looking at next year.
Yeah, and I think, to the extent, that we can start to have planning conversations with the town, with the finance committees to say about the 3-year plan, whatever, so that.
The curriculum adoption plan, we have that all mapped out as
So
well.
that these things are not surprises, so we can try to be planful and expect.
So there's separate,
last-
there's separate pieces of it that aren't necessarily the budget process, but, the IT audit alludes to what our plan needs to be over, the next 10 years. We're talking about a facilities audit, so we know how much money we need to invest back into our school, infrastructure and facility. We're talking about safety audits so that we can plan for future safety needs. Curriculum plan, we have a curriculum plan. We know that year in and year out, there might be items we want to pilot, but we're not going to commit to them for 5 years unless we know we like it and it follows the curriculum and we're seeing progress. So there's individual plans that all play into the budget.
But to your point, when we went through budgeting last time, like Angie had put together a roadmap that showed curriculum investments that we need to make to remain current, continue to, make sure we're updating things. And we did go over that with the finance committee in detail, because we wanted them to see, this is, we're asking for new curriculum, but this is not a one and done. These things have to be updated, they have to be.
Things will not be decreasing.
Right.
It's just impossible.
So we are, I'm not on the budget committee anymore, but I know that was the process we had taken.
And we'll continue.
When I was there.
Right.
You have to. That'd be.
Yeah, and maybe we just, I don't know the answer, but it'd be good if we just had like a meeting as a committee, like to talk about the strategic plan, like some recurring meeting. I don't know, like so we can kind of stay on line to it, right? Like, and it doesn't have to be every month, or we can talk about it in a workshop or whatever. But I just feel like for myself, I lose the thread sometimes around. Right, these were the things we're talking about before that we want to get done, and how do we kind of keep them on the radar, keep talking, and they're probably being talked about, right? But it's just.
So just to go back to that, if you recall last year, and I'm still working on it, is I have a separate document that shows how these agenda items relate to the strategic plan, and if you'd like, I can have that updated for the next meeting.
Great.
That would be
Okay.
great.
Yeah.
And just to add one more thing, in these budget conversations and meetings and subcommittee meetings and school committee meetings, the intention is to be fully transparent. So we're going to put items in our budget that are going to be crossed out just to show you this was an ask, this was a want, this was a need, but it's not going to fit in here, but it's not going away for the future. This is in our budget, but it's funded by a grant right now, but we need this moving forward when that grant disappears. So we're going to have those type of highlighted items in the budget too, so that, again, we can be as transparent as possible and get that information to the town and the public and the players of our budget building process to say, hey, these are here and they're funded now or they're not funded now, but in the long-term vision, we want these and we want them from, local aid and local support, so.
Excellent.
All right, so moving on, I'll breeze through the rest of this. Facilities, sign replacement. So we've been in touch, the sign's been received, they've installed the software, they've vetted it out. I'm just waiting for them to knock on the door now and say, we're here to install it. So, I'll keep calling them week in and week out, but it'll be here soon. Maybe with Christmas and, the bright lights, it'll bring everything together for the holiday season. AES roof replacement. So good news is the roof is watertight. That project is, 99% done. There's some, minor changes that they need to make. But, the roof's in good shape. We shouldn't have any issues moving forward. There's one more step that they'll do in the spring where they do an infrared roof scan to make sure there's no moisture trapped in between the layers of the roofing, between the temperature drops and rises and the weather. So they'll do that, and that'll really be the last step. But right now, it's 99% done. Expenses are in, and we don't expect those to change much from here on out. And, we appreciate everyone's patience over at AES for, just everything that had to do with the roof project, whether it was leaks or testing, or we had to move someone for, a plumber, or, relocate classrooms, or there were endless surprises, and we thank everyone involved. Everyone was great and accommodating, and I think everyone did their best to just, put their foot forward. So thank you for that. AES tower installation. Again, we keep hitting snags, and we have a new building inspector that's, wants different things for this tower installation project. The contractors have one agenda, we have another. So there's ongoing discussions with the town on how we can move forward with that. We have the funds appropriated between what was in the school budget and what was in the town budget. So at this point, the town clerk has been brought in to assist with the process, and I'm going to meet with her to see how or where or when we can get this tower up. And then, last but not least, as far as facilities go, CPC funds. So we received the funding in the fall. We've gotten bleacher quotes to essentially acquire four sets of bleachers, two 30-foot bleachers that will be wall-mounted in FMS, and then two 15-foot bleachers that are on wheels that we can move about wherever we need to. We floated the idea that those bleachers might live in AES so that they have a new set of bleachers, and then if we ever need them for pep rallies or assemblies or things like that, we can throw them on furniture dollies, wheel them across the parking lot, and fill up the FMS gym as needed. So we're excited about that. That being said, those quotes came in around $38,000, which will leave us with about $87,000 left to invest into the courts outside, and we'll start, facilitating quotes or bids or whatever we need to do for that project. And if there's additional funding that we need, we'll have to, as a subcommittee, we'll have to talk about going to the town to ask for more, or tapping into our use of facility funds just to finish off the outdoor project. Food service. November, we served 2,273 reimbursable breakfasts and 10,683 reimbursable lunches. I like to include the population of our students, again, because it plays into our data, and as Patrick alluded to, plays into our SIMS data, our E-rate, things like that. So, for the month of November, 38% of the breakfasts were, purchased by free students, 6% reduced, and 56% paid. For lunches, it was 36% free, 5% reduced, and 59% paid. That being said, the school program, the meals are free, but we're still obligated to track by, free, reduced, or full price for reporting purposes. So.
Where did we leave off on that whole food thing? 'Cause I feel like.
So we're gonna have the workshop. Okay. Our next workshop was scheduled for late January, and we're gonna do the nutrition workshop. And we've already made great strides that I think you guys are gonna be excited about. We've put more information out there as far as menus go, nutritional facts, student tracking of what has been purchased, and in greater detail than before. But we'll cover it all in the workshop. Transportation, so I'll be meeting with Amarillo Bus Company actually this Thursday, just to go over the trials and the tribulations of transportation, the good, bad, and the ugly, whatever it may be, everything's going to be on the table. More importantly, subcommittee met last month, I think it was last month, it feels like yesterday at this point, but yeah. What was decided with our walkers and rider policy was temporarily to keep it in place as is, with the thought process of adding an additional bus for both AES and FMS for fiscal '24. What we think that will do is let us build more efficient routes so that the pickup and drop off from home to school is less timely and on time, less crowdedness on buses, so that there's more space for students to sit and behave and ride the bus safely, and then accommodate all students. So I think that was the number one takeaway from the subcommittee, was that we want to continue to allow all students to ride our buses, whether they're a mile from school, half a mile from school, or 20 miles from school. So it does come at an additional cost, but we will talk to Amarillo Bus Company about it and see just kind of what it will look like for FY24, and if adding another bus will address these concerns.
What I think we also talked about too is
also taking a really close look at the existing routes and making sure that they're as efficient as they can be before we
Correct.
put it into a budget that we're going to get in front of us. And so there's still a little bit more work to do there. But I thought that was important to take a look at.
And this is a change from what we were talking about previously, right, in terms of how we, so.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So I think it's good to explore and see if it's.
But I will note that the subcommittee decided to keep the policy the same. We just will not enforce it at this time,
Right.
especially with the possibility of an additional bus.
It's the discretion of the superintendent of doing that because of safety factors.
Correct.
And that's been the past practice.
Yeah. Absolutely.
All right, and last on my agenda is another declaration of surplus. So this comes from the curriculum director. There's a handful of textbooks that have been noted as surplus just due to being obsolete as far as our curriculum goes and information goes. So that needs to be signed off by school committee and voted to surplus.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And Angie and myself will, discuss the best use for these books now, whether it's donating them or finding a school in need or tutors or something of the sort, or offering them again to, the public for a price. So we'll be in discussion with that, and we'll update you with our decisions there. So.
Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so there, any school committee member reports this evening? No? Okay.
The next meeting I'll address the information that the superintendent provided as far as comparison of the school districts. I was examining it. I probably will report on it if you don't mind at the next meeting.
Sure, sounds great. So there are some communications noted in the agenda that are available in your packet. You can read at your leisure. We do have executive session this evening to discuss security personnel or devices, and votes may be taken this evening. And so if I could please have a motion to adjourn our public meeting. We are going to be coming back. Yeah.
No.
No? Even though votes are being taken.
We're taking a vote in executive session for the minutes.
Okay, so yes, so let me just make that clear. We're taking a vote in executive session just to approve the executive session meeting minutes of our previous executive session on October 18, 2022. So we will not be returning. So if I could have a motion, please, to adjourn our public meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Do you need a roll call?
I'm going to do a roll call. Mrs. Gomes?
Yes.
Mr. Tubbs is absent. Mr. Hood?
Yes.
Mr. Hubkach?
Yes.
Mrs. Downing?
Yes.
Yes, 6:29.
Thank you, everybody. And our next regular school committee meeting is just, will be held here in the John Tavares Library on Tuesday, January 10th at 5:30 p.m. Happy holidays.